Chainsaw Man continues its hands-on approach, entering into the most recent events of Chapter 169. The chapter is literally called Hands and Adaptation, so I swear that Fujimoto is just trolling us at this point, like, he kind of hates us. But despite the graphic content that spanned over the last couple of weeks, it all comes full circle as Denji and everyone else embark on their greatest adventure to date, going to a sushi restaurant. Yes, I can feel the One Piece style antics on the horizon. I'm officially declaring Katana Man for the next Pirate King. He'll do a great job. But judging off this mixed bag of characters and the complexities they have all recently faced in the grip of hand-stroking, numbing depression, I'm happy that I can say that at least one of these mad lads will enjoy this trip, and that's Fami the Famine Devil. Just look at her face. That's the expression of pure happiness. And honestly, we should all take some notes. Take a step out of Fami's playbook and follow in her footsteps, because to get to that level of majesticness is just, you can't learn that in school. You have to study that. Now, broadly speaking, this environment intentionally comes across as a bit innocuous. It's just a sushi restaurant called Death by Sushi, so obviously nothing horrible is gonna happen, right? Just kidding, this is Chainsaw Man. I'll be honest, after reading Fire Punch, I've lost all faith in humanity. Denji's gonna suffer, we're all gonna suffer, and Fujimoto is just gonna be in the corner laughing at us all. But the sushi restaurant on its own serves as one giant metaphor for Denji, and although it may seem a little bit out there, let's break it down. Something that I like to do in my mind is compare the before and after of where characters started, what happened in the middle, and how that affects their current circumstances. In Denji's case, the majority of his upbringing was spent in abject poverty. He could barely afford to live a day, and it comes to the point that even the idea of jam on bread becomes his ideal of a perfect life. This idea of consumption is very significant with Denji, as it molds him into a person who enjoys the pleasures of life, and transitions symbolically into the chainsaw devil that devours and erases other devils from existence. And it's even more significant in the end of part 1, where Denji literally consumes Makima and essentially becomes one with her, which is some next level commitment. But this situation is completely different. He's surrounded by sushi everywhere, which is some top tier stuff, by the way. He isn't footing the bill, so he doesn't even need to think about the cost, and everything he wants is right before his eyes. He can eat, and he doesn't have to worry about a thing. Except not once in this entire chapter does he so much as take a bite. He physically can't entertain or indulge himself to consume anything. Denji's dazed and confused, and he looks at everyone around him freely, filling their stomachs to their heart's content. But he just can't ignore this pit in his stomach that's ironically eating away at him. There's just this massive disconnect between how he sees things in contrast to the reality of his situation. Everyone is filled with life and happiness, but he doesn't know how to digest his feelings. Denji even questions if they got a happy ending, like he previously did, and that's why they can fill their stomachs and enjoy the moment. And if that's the case and they're so happy, why isn't he? Denji has been put through the ringer. He suffered tragedy after tragedy that he doesn't even want to exist anymore. Think about it. Sushi is flooding through his eyes. It's all he can eat. It's all he can indulge. He had his first real, intimate experience with a girl that's, more than getting manipulated and abused, and although he physically could have done better, his heart did feel pretty good in the moment. Which, by the way, is the most philosophical degree of post-nut clarity that I've ever witnessed, and tragically, I can say that I've walked through his shoes before. With all these awful things that have recently happened to him, like losing Nayuta and his dogs, his apartment, and then having a couple of good things happen in between, is that really enough to be content? Is Denji happy or unhappy? Are these the dreams that Pochita actually wanted to see through? What is he even fighting for? And what is the purpose behind any of this? Witnessing Denji's introspection is such a dramatic shift in his character, from a person who didn't think about things so specifically and was constantly chasing after his venereal desires. He goes from Booba to sacrificing himself for his sister. If that's not character development, I don't know what is. If we look at something like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, Denji begins his character journey at the bottom, just trying to pass on the time and live under normal human standards. Once he joins public safety, he hits that second tier, and then for the rest of Chainsaw Man Part 1, he's essentially been elevating to that third tier, up and down, and trying to get past that situation. He makes intimate connections with people like Power and Aki, and finds a place where he belongs, and instantly, it's all ripped away from him. In Chainsaw Man Part 2, things settle down for the most part. He has a family, a home, and a place to live, and by all accounts, he's walking the path of a normal life, but he still wants more. His mindset is focused on the fourth stage, and ultimately, even moving past that to self-actualize maximize and become the best version of himself and live his best life. Denji already has a lot, but he's still hungry to be the chainsaw hero and the love, respect, and recognition that title maintains and the praise of self-worth it carries, because Denji is someone who doesn't think much of himself, but if others believe in him, it will instill him with purpose. But Denji keeps facing setback after setback, people trying to steal his freedom, destroy his family, and when he moves towards lasting intimate connections, he's just used in the process. Those expectations he has for himself crumble away. The things he desires are lukewarm at best, and that's how we get a Denji who's so caught up in the mix that he can't even eat. Asa is the other side of the coin here, cause she's been going through her fair share of emotional turmoil. Knowing how far she went with Denji, like she really milked it. She's riddled with embarrassment, but she still can't keep her eyes off him. Now, according to Barum, devils don't feel sadness, but witnessing Denji and Asa firsthand, pun not intended, they obviously feel some type of way about their predicaments because a lot is weighing on their consciences. They may adapt like animals, they may fight like devils, but they still live as humans, processing their emotions and feelings. But something that I did note is that it's clear that this situation is not nearly as affecting Asa to the same degree as it does Denji. And despite their headspaces and other things they've been through, the only conclusion that I can come up with, which is why this is the case, is because Asa adapts to her circumstances far better than Denji. This is something that's more or less reiterated through Haruka's and Higashiyama's discussion. And full disclosure, I just learned their names and I'm totally expecting them to get killed off at some point, but I digress. Higashiyama comments that Asa Mitaka is weird. I mean, she has a devil inside of her, so good job, Sherlock. But it's the fact that she lost her arm and it doesn't even seem like she's bothered. She seems totally fine and laments that if she were in that same position, she'd be depressed as hell. And that totally sounds like a skill issue. She can take this L and live with it. But that's when Barum enters the conversation and implies that in that way, Asa is no different from an animal. Animals don't get sad when they lose a limb, they just adapt to their environment for the sake of their survival. It's an unconscious process and that's why they continue living. And so this notion proposes an interesting idea. If Yoru kissed Denji because Asa's feelings flowed through her, so it's possible that the opposite is also true. Asa's cold disposition could be a result of Yoru's influence. Just as devils don't cry when something tragic happens, Asa adapts to her situation without an arm, without hesitation. Speaking of which, once Denji notices Barum, he doesn't even waste a second. He goes 0 to 100. He stands up, grabs his chopsticks like he's grasping a knife and leans in to kill him, like he was fully prepared to marinate him into next Thursday for Nayuta's sake, like giving him the Makima treatment. I'd say that this is the standout moment of the chapter, because it showcases where Denji's priorities actually lay, despite the fact that he's constantly thinking with his lower member. Denji's care for his sister triumphs all. Like, other than his internal dialogue and processing everything in his mind, the only words Denji says in this entire chapter is, "Where is Nayuta?" Outside of the chaos and lust, Denji's main battle in part 2 is that between his family and throwing it all away to become Chainsaw Man. Ever since he killed his dad and after unlocking that metaphorical door in his mind, Denji has been riddled with guilt and trauma, punishing himself for his transgressions and denying him a chance of normalcy. But since reviving, his only mission and every action that he's taken has been in pursuit of saving Nayuta. Yes, he got derailed on the way, but when push comes to shove, that's his only reason for moving forward. Denji subconsciously deluded himself into believing that everything he wants is surface level, but his reason for living has always been around him. Creating a family, and regaining all those things that he's lost along the way. So when he immediately steps up for Nayuta's sake, it's expressive of his stance of where his mindset is with a clear mind. He may have made a plethora of mistakes and wrong decisions, but when it comes to his little sister, it's not even a question. Even in the face of the enemy, he's willing to sit down and roll over and actually eat some sushi and listen if it means he has a better chance of getting Nayuta back. It's this part that I truly respect about Denji. He goes through so much, he's been through so much, but he's gonna continue to suffer and struggle if it means he comes out on top and he gets what he truly desires. They may not be the most noble reasons, and maybe Denji is just lying to himself, but it's always the intent within his actions that make him so human. He grabs hold of his circumstances and adjusts when necessary. He will eat sushi, adapt, and move on. Because regardless of how sucky your life is wallowing in your burdens really gonna change much? Is holding on to your hatred actually gonna solve any of your problems? Right now, he has a chance to save Nayuta. He has an opportunity to rewrite all these terrible things and save his family. So eat off your plate, grab life by the balls, and move forward. That's who Denji is.